How's it going, everybody? My cup of tea here, back in a reaction video, and it's time for me to come back to a series that I've been holding off for the longest of times. Yay, yay. Now I apologize, I have failed the Emperor, because I have been neglecting the Warhammer series. Now again, I apologize for that for my Warhammer fan base. I've been letting you down. I haven't been watching it for like a few months, like several months. But we changed that now. Now what sparked this change is because I saw the Space Marine 2 gameplay on Twitch. I saw someone play it, and I'm like, oh, that looks cool. And that made me think like, wait a minute. I used to watch Warhammer and I was like really invested into the lore. I was like, man, this is a very interesting and messed up series. I wanted to like get back into it. And since it's been a long time, I decided why not refresh my memory on the Emperor of Man. So that's what we're going to be watching. So today we're going to be watching The Emperor of Man 1, The Rise of Humanity, Warhammer 40K lore. Now this is part 1 of a part 2 series. We might watch part 2 tomorrow. So yeah, I'm just excited to get back into Warhammer and to learn more about the lore, because there's some other videos I want to check out that's Warhammer related that you guys have sent me and that my friends sent me as well. So let's get it. Let's get back into learning. Alright, grab some snacks, grab some drinks. It's going to be a long video. Oh, and if you guys don't know, for some people new to my channel, I have watched Warhammer before. I know, like, I remember some things about the Emperor of Man, but not a lot of things. But here we go. From the darkness, there's only war. I should have my phone out to take notes, I feel. Later. Got me some
There once was a man born in a forgotten time, created by a force of unknown origin.
Okay, I can see now. Okay, yeah.
He would cross the ages knowing his one purpose: to lead humanity as the greatest empire in the galaxy.
Okay,
the
okay.
Imperium of Man.
Yep, the Imperium of Man. Yep. Hype him up.
In this time, he would be known by only one name: the Emperor of Mankind.
Emperor of Man. Look at him. Majestic. I think there's something going on with Warhammer at the moment, like just like some controversy. I don't know. I'm not up to date with that, but I'm just here to learn about the lore. That's all. Emperor Man. I remember a little bit about his backstory, how he became Emperor Man. I remember a little bit, but not everything.
This is Luton. I must first apologise for the length of time since the last project. The simplest explanation is it took me a long time to compile amid many other things going on for me.
Like
so we now move on from the Eldar history and wade into one of the most important and complicated narratives.
Okay, Eldars. That's something I need to look up into as well. I gotta look into that race, the Eldars. Because there's the Eldars that my friend likes, and then there's the Dark Eldars that I don't think anybody likes, which I don't like either when I heard what they do.
In the universe of the 41st millennium. It is, of course, the rise of humanity and the Imperium. In the dark, never-ceasing war that is the future, humans have risen to control and maintain a galaxy-spanning empire whose official title is the Imperium of Mankind. The Imperium is the largest and most powerful political entity in the galaxy. It has been established for a period of some 10,000 years up to its present date in the age of Warhammer 40K. The lore and scripture around this period is massive. Despite this daunting task though, I've decided to interpret it in one piece chronologically, splitting it into chapters so as to best enable you guys to get an understanding and a grasp of what it is all about.
A beginner still.
This is the third video in my Warhammer 40,000 lore series, and it seeks to create a foundation for all of the further videos which talk about the Imperium of Man.
That's crazy, because I'm pretty sure I watched a few of his videos from Luton before in the past. And this is his third video, like, ever on the Warhammer series. He's came a long way, I feel. But I appreciate the chapters. It helps me.
The Imperium of Man consists of the planets, systems, and forces throughout the galaxy which contain Imperial citizens and their derivatives. Not all humans are universally members of the Imperium though, and as you would expect, there are rogue traders and those who choose to live on the legal fringes of the society.
Right.
The single most important figure within the Imperium is the aforementioned founder, saviour, and ruler of this empire, known as the Emperor of Mankind. He formed the Imperium some 10,000 years previous to the current established date in the universe of Warhammer 40,000 at the end of the 30th millennium. This occurred following an especially brutal period of societal disintegration during the last days of the Age of Strife.
Yeah, I remember the Age of Strife. I remember that. I'm pretty sure I took notes on this too in the past. Okay.
In this video, I'll outline the political state that is the Imperium, as well as the history behind how humanity reached this point in the far future. As with anything though, the complexity and depth of the lore means I can't cover it in its fleshed entirety, so some tangents are going to have to remain for future videos, but I do my best to cover as much as possible which is relevant.
Yeah, let's do the main points for me.
The Emperor of Man sits as an extremely powerful figure within the Imperium. Make no mistake, he is the centre of humanity in the 41st millennium. So powerful a humanoid, he was arguably barely human to begin with, and he continues to protect mankind after his mortal wounding during the final battles of a period known as the Horus Heresy.
Yep, the Horus Heresy, yep, that's a big event.
His ever-present psychic voice reaching out, searching, protecting and planning, then the Imperium of Man would undoubtedly fall back into dark oblivion, and perhaps the light would be extinguished permanently.
We don't want
the
that.
Emperor was injured so badly after the heresy that he now exists only as a husk of a man within a stasis chamber called the Golden Throne. This allows him to live on eternally as he has done for some past 10,000 years, whilst continually guiding mankind.
It's all part of his master plan. It's all part of his plan.
The only catch with this is thousands of psykers are sacrificed every day using their essence and psychic power to keep him alive, as he is heavily protected and attended to back on the ancient homeworld of legend, Terra, or Old Earth.
Yeah, I remember that. I think it was not the Custodians. It's some sort of a group of like the Space Marines. I don't know if they are. That like protects the Emperor. They're like one of the strongest that protects the Emperor. I don't know if he's gonna mention it. I don't know like where we're going with this video, but I just remember a little bit of stuff I remember from the previous videos. Is he still like a husk? Like when he's gonna get back to normal? Maybe in Warhammer 40K? I don't know.
The Imperium of Man in the wider galaxy now consists of many systems, planets, and trillions of citizens. All the while, the Imperial military and the many administrators of mankind, all of whom swear allegiance to the Emperor, all stand together against the nightmares of the galaxy to form what is humanity in the darkest of futures.
Oh, nah. Oh, shoot. Okay. I don't really have anything to say. I already talked about what I was going to say, so I guess we'll just keep going.
Now we know that in this future we have access to highly advanced technology and face many voracious enemies wielding our own forces to then counter them. The important question in understanding the Imperium is how did we get to this time? And to understand this, we need to look back at the extensive and dark history of humanity.
Dark history, let me hear it. I'm all here for dark history.
As to the way in which the people that constitute humanity in the 41st millennium view their past. That is, the Imperial two-headed eagle, the crest of the Imperium. It stands with its two heads, but with one eye closed. Blind, or perhaps refusing to see the past. The other eye is open, looking to the future. The logic being that the past of humanity is too painful or dangerous to look back on, so we look forward, striving to be stronger and more powerful, as we have done for thousands of years.
Okay. What if you make mistakes, though, if, like, in the future
there are distinct ages of humanity's history, and these tell the story of how we reached the time of the Imperium. 1 millennium equals 1,000 years. The Imperium has now been established for 10 millennia or 10,000 years. Humanity has existed for roughly 41,000 years. This timeline demonstrates the ages of man.
Ancient history, Age of Terra, Golden. Okay, the technology one, I remember that. I remember this one. I remember the Age of Strife a little bit. Unification Wars, Great Crusade. I remember a little bit of Horus Heresy. Okay, so I guess this is like the table of contents in this video we're gonna go through. All right.
Through this period, from our ancient history through to the age of the Imperium.
You just said it. Well,
we have the ancient history, the Age of Terra, the Golden Age of Technology or the Dark Age of Technology, the Age of Strife, the Unification Wars, the Great Crusade and the Fall of the Eldar, the Horus Heresy and the Great Scouring, followed by the final Age of Imperium of Man.
Let's go, ancient history. Be in history class, everyone. Take out your textbooks.
The ancient history tells of the dawn of mankind, but this period is largely one of animalistic evolution. The most significant event occurs around 7000 BC. This event marks the birth of the humanoid, who would become the Emperor of Mankind. His origins are something of a heated debate among the 40k community.
Really?
There are several theories around this, and it's important to note that something I rarely see stated on forums or discussions around the origins of the Emperor is that quite simply no one knows the origins of the Emperor. It's all just speculation.
Okay, well, because I'm pretty sure, right, this came out 8 years ago. Yeah, 8 years ago. I'm blocking it, but it's 8 years ago this video came out. I don't know if like they confirmed there's like how the Emperor came to be, but if not, okay, so there's theories. Cool. Okay, I thought
simply because
it was
one
like only
theory
one
has had a vague reference at one time or another does not make it gospel. In fact, as I've repeated before, the origins of the Emperor. It's all just speculation. Simply because one theory has had a vague reference at one time or another does not make it gospel. In fact, as I've repeated before, the crux of the matter with Imperial history and lore in general is that very little should ever be considered official or canon. Such is the state of the loss of history, misinformation, and suppression of facts within the 40k universe. So essentially, the correct version is the version you want to believe. In a universe where history is stored over thousands of years, and in times of unimaginable devastation and strife, it's unlikely something could be considered a cold, hard fact, especially when you're talking about events that happened in ancient history in an age where accurate recording of information seems unlikely or even impossible to have survived.
Okay.
The first version of these events is the often widely accepted background, which states that in the ancient times, some humans carried a natural affinity or awareness of the warp. These were the earliest psykers. They would be village shamans or witch doctors in ancient communities.
I believe the warp is that evil, not evil, but it's like this thing out in space where it's like, I don't know how to describe it. I think I know what the warp is, I just can't describe it accurately. But I think that's how you get like psykers can get their powers from the warp, something like that.
Psykers. They would be village shamans or witch doctors in ancient communities. Their premonitions led them to understand that in the future, mankind would face the darkest of times. Their decided course of action would be to commit ritual suicide en masse, returning their souls and essence to the warp to then coalesce and be reborn as one supremely powerful psychic being. Okay,
that's what I heard. Sorry, that's what I remember. That's what I thought is like how the Emperor came to be. From that right there, like all these psykers like basically self-delete themselves to become like one super powerful psyker, which became the Emperor. I thought that's like how he became to be, but since that's just one speculation, so alright, I'm curious to hear the other ones then, if I can.
This being would then spend the future millennia living a Highlander-like existence, transitioning from identity to identity, sometimes taking on famous leaders in history to steer humanity in the right direction.
I didn't know that part.
And then
I didn't know that.
Reaching the age of strife, he would step into the fore to become the supreme leader of all humanity and unite us again throughout the galaxy. Now, some people take this as the most canon version of the Emperor's origin,
I did.
but there are various others, including the one that I actually personally subscribe to. The shaman story is all very well and good, but it leaves me with some questions. For example, if these shaman were some of the earliest humans with only a vague awareness of the warp, how could they have such powerful precognition to foresee the need to create such a super being? In addition to that, if they were truly the earliest stowings of psykers for humanity, then surely they would not have been especially powerful, and even with their powers combined, how could they summon humanity's greatest champion? No,
that's true.
Not Captain Planet.
They were early on.
So, those two things stand out for me. Also, their plan to commit mass suicide and then hope that they would all be reborn together seems pretty spurious. It seems to tick the boxes from an okay, I guess that's possible point of view, but it just doesn't make sense beyond that.
That makes sense, yeah, why you would...
Another theory is that the Emperor was in fact one of the Old Ones, who you will remember were one of the most ancient super beings who created the Eldar, the Orcs, and even humanity. Yes, really. Go and look it up for those naysayers who...
Were the Old Ones the one that they fought against the Necrons? They were like the earliest civilization? I think it was the Necrons versus the Old Ones, and the Old Ones won, or like they created the... Orcs and the Eldars to fight against something like that. I don't remember. My history.
Orcs and even
my knowledge is slipping.
Yes,
I should have been watching it.
Go and look it up for those naysayers who think that they did not. This theory, again, at first is captivating until you start to think about it more. And then you realise it doesn't really make any sense. The Old Ones were, as far as we are informed, not shapeshifters, but creatures of light and dark. There was a statement to the fact that just a single Old One escaped the brutal genocide of their race, but then was eventually killed at the birth of Slaanesh when the Eldar fell. If the Emperor was some other escaped Old One, it doesn't make logical sense that they would choose one race and then ultimately lead it. Although I suppose, devil's advocate, who's to say what would be going in the mind of this Old One after his entire race was extinguished? Maybe it had a crisis of conscience. Anything, I guess, is possible. And then not to mention also the fact that the Emperor would lead humanity to wage war on pretty much every other alien race, which wouldn't really serve any purpose within the context of an Old One's mission statement. They were originally life givers. They seeded planets with life to, create new races in the universe. And again, unless it had simply lost the plot and was operating on his own sort of mission plan. There are some things that do fit this theory though, such as Old Ones being very powerful psychic creatures. They had extended precognition, they had very extensive, almost immortal long life, and they would have the ability to genetically manipulate humans. But all of this seems very soft and is only plausible at best. For me, this theory just doesn't really fit.
Yeah.
So the last theory, and the one that I personally believe, is that the Emperor was neither the creation of some bizarre suicide pact or an Old One. Rather, something in between. It's fair to say that in any ancient history nothing is quite as it's written, and that some reading between the lines is necessary. The most ancient of history available hints that the last remaining Old One floated around the galaxy, meddling and dabbling and trying to have some last impact on the worlds which they felt they had failed and left their race completely annihilated. We know that the Old Ones were capable of creating beings of immense psychic power. This is how the ancient Eldar defeated the Necrons and Satan, who, well, let's not forget...
Eldars, that's right,
Get gods capable of devouring stars. So the theory I stand by is that a fragmented remaining Old One drifted around the galaxy until he was struck by a precognition so terrible that he had no choice but to resolve becoming involved. It could be that he saw the vision of the Eldar fall or the rise of chaos. Either way, he knew that the Eldar were by now far too arrogant to accept any help and would be of no use.
Arrogant indeed,
Remembering the Eldar had turned their backs on the Old Ones long ago. The Orcs, who were also an Old One's creation, they were too crass and mindless for such preparation. Instead, he would turn to the weak humans. Weak, but with great potential. And so he would decide on forming a divine creature, a humanoid of the most immense power, but birthed in such a way that he would not allow those humans would not immediately view him as a god, but as a man, to be not worshipped, but instill a sense of power, of awe, of destiny.
Well, you felt that worship part, because they definitely started worshiping him later.
There are other clues as well. Apparently, further along in Earth's ancient history, a creature crashed to Earth who had an appearance we would describe as a dragon. It would seem, though, that this dragon was in fact a small fragment of the star gods, the Satan, who had been destroyed thousands of light years away by the Necrons. Even a tiny fragment of these most powerful beings would be beyond the means of even the most powerful humans to contain. The future Emperor in this time wounded this creature and then apparently took it to Mars. I'm not sure how.
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
Would be beyond the means of even the most powerful humans to contain. The future Emperor in this time wounded
the future Emperor in this time wounded
this creature and then apparently took it to Mars. I'm not sure how, but there it lay imprisoned within the planet. The final chapter of that story, that's one for another day. Still though, this helps to secure the idea that no mere reincarnation of a few shaman could produce such or perform such a task.
The Emperor has like a lot of power.
Perhaps, but given the other evidence, I would still discount it. But a perfectly designed humanoid of godlike form created by an Old One who would know a most powerful psychic being was needed to counter not just the future darkness of man, but to face again the Satan and the day of reckoning when the Necrons would rise again. This seems for me the most logical and plausible of origins.
Well, too bad. I don't think we're not worried about the Necrons right now. I think I'm pretty sure everyone's worrying about the Tyranids, if I remember correctly. Since they're like the most, either the Tyranids or the Orcs have like the most of their species. Like they're like a lot of them. Probably Tyranids. I'm not sure.
The truth though is that we cannot know the origin of the Emperor unless some definitive tome is discovered which provides secure evidence as to such. So we are left to speculate until then. One thing that is certain though is that the Emperor was a human and holds godlike psychic power.
Right.
He was within humanity throughout all of history, learning, sometimes guiding, mostly sitting in the shadows, until he was needed to take a course of action that would lead us into the Age of the Imperium. The last point worthy of mention is that the Emperor of Man would enforce a strictly secular society. In the early days of the Imperium, this would then enable humanity would identify with him as a man and not as a god. They wouldn't project any religious
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. Sorry, I had to pause real quick because I made a mistake. Yeah, that was the plan. If we go with the third theory that he mentioned, yeah, the Emperor did not want to be viewed as a god. But when I think after he's gonna say, but I think after certain events happen, they're like, nah, he's our god now. Everything for the Emperor.
Connotations onto him.
Yeah.
Also, because throughout the thousands of years he spent on Earth, he would see the terrible devastation and fragmentation organized religion could cause. He believed that humanity could only achieve its full potential in a strictly secular state. However, even in the crusading period where the Emperor would reunite the lost colonies of man, some people began to spread rumors that he was more than just a powerful man. These beliefs would run so strong, it would even question some Astartes to the faith. Such as Battle Captain Nathaniel Garrow, one of my favourite characters in the 40K and one of the few Space Marines from the Death Guard chapter not to be corrupted by chaos. Some citizens of the Imperium consider the Emperor's stance on faith even a test so as to distinguish those who can see the whole of the truth, that he is in fact the one true god of mankind.
No, you're reading too much into it. The Age of Terra, okay. What is this?
We would now reach the time known as the Age of Terra. This was the period on Earth from the 1st to the 15th millennia. That is the first 15,000 years on old Earth. A period of extreme technological expansion, from a pre-industrial era to that of fusion power and travel beyond our planet. And
sorry, quick question. Are there like games, because I know the current game is on the 40K universe. Are there games made where it's like before 40K? Because, no, there probably is, because I remember playing Warhammer Vermintide with my friend, too, Yeah, there's probably other games where it's like different timelines or different millenniums. Okay, my fault. Ignore my question. Answer my question. Let me know the other games. I'm curious.
Expansion, from a pre-industrial era to that of fusion power and travel beyond our planet and even solar system. Humanity would first colonize new worlds within our system, first on Mars and then the moons of Jupiter, before mankind would start to look at how we could travel beyond.
That's pretty.
To achieve this next goal, colossal starships were created for humanity to cross the voids between solar systems, and powerful engines. At this time, these advanced fusion drives enabled very, very fast but still sub-light travel. This meant in order to reach their destination, it could take anything as long as 10 generations of human lifespan to reach their destinations.
Jeez.
Subsequently, trade and aid between human colonies was then extremely difficult and would lead to them being established almost as independent states. Very little is known of this period as imperial records are fragmented and limited. The Emperor during this time had no reason to interfere and so would continue his own work and research back on Earth. Study and the improvement of man, all the while remaining in the shadows. During the period between the 1st and 15th millennium, various events of discovery and importance took place that would finally propel us to create our first interstellar confederation in the 15th millennium. One of the most important events of note would be during M4. Humanity would discover the warp and begin to research it. This is specifically relevant as it would have been one of the discoveries and begin. Events of note would be during M4. Humanity would discover the warp and begin to research it. This is specifically relevant as it would have been one of the discoveries that would lead the Emperor to understanding the necessity of him coming into the fore.
Warp, baby. Okay, now this one I remember some parts of it. I think it was on. I think we messed up. I think humans messed up on this chapter.
As we reach the 15th millennium, humanity would enter a golden age of technology. This would be the highest point.
Oh, this is so pretty too! Oh my god.
It would last for some 10,000 years, and humanity continued its rise in technology, science, and power, spreading and colonizing mankind all across the Milky Way galaxy. we could create our first galactic empire, ruled from Earth, the homeworld, and establish massive trade networks that further powered expansion and advancement.
Sounds like a good time to me.
This earlier period in the Age of Technology has a subtitle known as the Stellar Exodus. This marks the time when humanity made its first colonies on other worlds, and also beyond the solar system. These initial colonies were reached using the ships that were still only capable of sublight speeds and were restricted by this, as well as our developing but limited knowledge of building these vast scale ships. When these ships reached their destination though, they would be then slowly deconstructed and the materials used to build the colonies. Some would become manufacturers capable of material. When these ships reached their destination though, they would be then slowly deconstructed and the materials used to build the colonies.
So it's kind of like a one trip type of thing for these ships, because you use these ships to get to these colonies, and use the same ship to like get the materials to like build more for the colonies. Okay. Because I guess the ships weren't like that advanced. Like, I mean, they were advanced, but not like super advanced around this time. So I said, why not just make more colonies? Okay. I think I get it.
Some would become manufacturers capable of producing massive war machines, or then back then, defensive machines. Things such as Imperial Knights and even Titans, which the colonies would use to defend themselves against the dangers of the galaxy. In a comparable way to early colonies on Earth, this meant they had to be self-sufficient, and due to the large timescales involved before anyone would likely reach out to them again, they would develop their own cultures and languages, largely influenced by the noble families established on these interstellar voyages, as well as physical elements on the new homeworld. The planet's characteristics would also shape the way in which their societies would evolve. Now, some 6,000 years later, around the period of Millennium 21, mankind now began a process of militarization. It is not known who or for what reason created this process or started it off, but along with our expansion and colonization of planets, we also began to expand and develop our weapons and forces. Fragments of what was developed during this age of technology, such as Imperial Knights, Titans, Land Raider designs and so on, would later be recovered by the Imperium far into the future. The largest proportion, however, would be lost to the tides of time, and we can only imagine or hope to continue recovering these lost and most powerful of technologies in the 41st millennium.
Yeah, I wonder why they were start building weapons. Like, I don't think they had any people to fight against. Or maybe the Emperor like saw like a vision, like he saw something like, hey, we should start preparing weapons now. Maybe that's why, but we don't know fully why they started making weapons and armor.
Humanity had risen to a period of immense power through our technology. And whilst the Emperor of Man existed, he had not made himself known to mankind. He continued to bide his time lying in the shadows, studying, planning, observing. The very fact that the Emperor is one of the few who would live through this time and on into the Age of the Imperium, and this would then have far-reaching implications for humanity, as the Emperor would carry his knowledge and strength of this golden age into a time when none would recall it, and where it would be of critical importance to our survival. For the Emperor, he would use this knowledge of the Age of Technology to bring humanity back to a glimmer of what once had been.
Because of the Dark Age of Technology, that's what happened.
In the thousands of years where humanity established its first interstellar empire, we would become, as much as the Eldar, supremely dependent on technology. In the thousands of years where humanity established its first interstellar empire, we would become, as much as the Eldar, supremely dependent on technology. Humankind had risen to a level of godlike understanding, and this was embraced and practiced by the people of the time. The Empire of Mankind was seen as a bastion of technological achievement and began to use a new class of humans entitled the Navigators to expand our reach and use the newly discovered warp to travel beyond the distances of existing star drives and cover vast distances in a short time. The Navigator's role is to, as the name suggests, protect and guide a ship through the tides and dangers of the warp. Eventually, over time, humanity would find the warp had become too turbulent to traverse. But in this time, navigators, they're not strictly psychers, as such. They possess a special gene called, unsurprisingly, the Navigator gene.
I didn't know this. Okay.
They also possess other abnormal characteristics, including a third eye in the forehead, as well as some more alien appearances, such as no pupils in their human eyes and translucent skin,
But they're still
as
humans,
well as maybe larger than normal appendages. Their origin is believed to have not been a natural development, but to have come about through genetic experimentation and engineering in this period of the age of technology.
Oh, okay, because they were
It
just
was
bored, I
likely that
guess.
mankind discovered the warp and that it could be utilized for crossings, but that required a safe means to traverse it and looked to create a solution to that problem.
Right.
Mankind's age of expansion and technological glory across the galaxy would lead to many worlds requiring their own localized defense forces. In this time, humanity's mastery of technology was largely unequaled, and this would be employed in the defense and relative growth of the colonies. One of these defense forces, one of the most powerful of them, would be the Imperial Knights. These were colossal war machines that towered over all they surveyed on a battlefield. They were built with the knowledge of the Golden Age of technology, and these giants survived until the Imperial Age, but they can essentially no longer be constructed from scratch. And as is often the case with technology in the Imperium, it is now merely maintained. The Imperial Knights themselves were operated by nobles from the colony worlds who would be entombed within them. They are sworn to protect their citizens from all Xenos threats and the endless nightmares in the universe.
Okay, so
As
they
the
were
Knights
fighting
would
back then,
advance
alright.
into the later ages, they continued their noble values and morals. Some of the Knights are the most selfless and dedicated forces within the Imperium, as well as being some of the oldest.
Okay. Oh, let's go Knights. Let's go Imperium Knights. Yeah. Yeah, wait, Imperium Knights? I don't know, I messed up their names.
The Imperial Knights themselves
Okay, yeah, Imperium Knights.
continued.
Okay, yeah, it's rare to hear that because I know about some space marine factions. They're that selfless. I mean, because of what that happened to them, they're just over here just trying to kill as many as they can. Okay, yeah, that's rare to hear.
Their noble values and morals. Some of the Knights are the most selfless and dedicated forces within the Imperium, as well as being some of the oldest. As with most technology,
and they're the oldest too, which is even more interesting to hear when you compare them to the Space Marines.
from the Dark or Golden Age technology, the Knights are immensely powerful, allowing them to run and fight as much as a Dreadnought would fight, but on a much larger scale. These ancient heroes have fought thousands of battles across millennia and stand ready to defend Imperial citizens and support Astartes anywhere in the galaxy.
Okay.
After the Knights, we have the Titans, and Titans are the epic
I think my
war
friends like the
machines
Titans,
of the
yeah.
Imperium.
Okay.
A Knight and the smallest Titan can be anything like 9-10 meters, but the big Titans can be anything up to 50 meters.
50?
They are gargantuan death machines.
I hyped them up. Let me hear some more
Many
about
people
them.
believe that the Mechanicum were originally responsible for creating the Titans. This is not strictly correct. They do construct some Titans, but many they simply maintain. This is because the technology used to create Titans is very, very old, and like many things in the universe of Warhammer 40,000 for the Imperium, a lot of technology is merely maintained because of its complexity. Simpler devices are constructed, but this happens less and less. But the Mechanicum do create some Titans for the Imperium. Originally,
Okay, but I'm assuming the Titans that the Mechanicums create are like less powerful than the original Titans and the Imperial Knights from back in the age of technology, like what, 21K, I think he said, or so around that time.
the Mechanicus found versions that were completely autonomous, created in the Golden Age of technology. And the largest Titan so far discovered was upon the lost forge world of Charania. It was a completely autonomous war machine and was dubbed the Castigator class Titan. Its schematic was apparently also contained within a standard template construct on this planet, and it was far superior to any class of Titan utilized by the Adeptus Mechanicus or any other intelligent race in the galaxy.
Dang. We need that Titan. We need to get the schematics.
This was so far the only known discovered Castigator class Titan, but it was subsequently destroyed by Imperial Grey Knights. Grey Knights are the secretive and unbreakable order of Astartes warriors dedicated to the protection of the Imperium from the very darkest foes that humanity faces in the 41st millennium.
Okay.
Now, the portion of the STC database containing the data for the manufacture of the Castigator-class Titan was also destroyed by the Mechanicus.
Dang.
It possessed AI, which is strictly outlawed and heretical within the Imperium.
Okay, yeah, I remember the AI. I remember that AI. Yeah, they don't like the AI.
It possessed
they don't like AI,
which is strictly outlawed and heretical
right now.
within the Imperium. Secondly, it had somehow long ago been corrupted by living chaos energy, and for
that's
this
not good
reason,
either.
it could obviously no longer be supported.
That's a double no.
Imperial records of this event, though, note that the cost of life and resources required to destroy this Titan monstrosity was severe. The key point here, though, is that mankind was developing machines in the golden age of technology that would never again be equaled. They could be merely copied, emulated, or used as a template to work from in the future. Time was developing machines in the golden age of technology that would never again be equaled. They could be merely copied, emulated, or used as a template to work from in the future. But our level of knowledge, our rules and guides on what could be created, due in part to events that were yet to come, would very much limit humanity's advancement in the millennia that lay ahead.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. So
I mentioned a moment ago something called an STC. This denotes a device known as a standard template construct.
Okay. Yeah,
These are one of the single most valuable objects in the galaxy for the Imperium. This denotes a device known as a standard template construct. These are one of the single most valuable objects in the galaxy for the Imperium, and their importance was no less during the Age of Technology. So what is an STC?
Yes, please.
STC systems were advanced AI computers created during the Golden or Dark Age of technology, and are said to have contained the sum total of human, scientific, and technological knowledge.
Oh.
STCs were created when human interstellar civilization was at its technological peak. Their original purpose was to enable colonists to survive on the new worlds they arrived upon, as they could not carry securely the mass amount of knowledge gained by humanity at this time, and even if they could, they might not have people capable of understanding how to utilize this.
Right.
The STC solved this problem. It enabled the colonies to access all of humanity's knowledge and display it in a way for them to be able to create
that's so useful.
From the resources available and solve any issue.
Wait, hold on, wait a minute. Hold on, there's a lot going on right now.
To be able to create anything they needed from the resources available and solve any issue that could arise for them on the new home worlds, no matter the geography, resource limitations, or climate. This would enable them to build anything from a simple las gun to a fortified bunker, massive war machines, or an atmospheric processor.
So the STC is like how to build something for dummies. It's just like, hey, we know you probably don't know how to build these things, so here you go. Just tell us what you need, what you have, everything about this. We can give you a quick little guide on how to make it. I'll show you how to make it real easy. I can see why that's very handy now. I can see why STCs are very handy now.
STC systems possess the ability to not just store information, but also to produce new designs to meet changing circumstances.
Oh, wait a minute. I didn't know
they are immensely powerful sources of information and power, and consequently the Imperium places a high value on obtaining these lost ancient knowledge.
I would too.
Even though now, after many thousands of years had passed, most of the discovered STCs are damaged to the point they only contain fragments of their former stored information. But Imperial forces will still use any means or resources necessary to obtain an STC once it has been discovered, even if this means the sacrifice of legions of military or civilian Imperial citizens.
Not the foot soldiers. That means even just 1% of the STCs, just 1% of the knowledge they can grab from the Golden Age or Dark Age of technology is that much useful. Even a little bit, we will get anything because we need more power or something like that. We need more stuff. From the Golden
Age of technology and into the ages to come, these valuable systems will be lost or destroyed, so that now in the age of the Imperium, they have become beyond rare, almost just a legend. So the consequent discovery of remnants of any new technology from the Dark Age of technology puts an STC's value to humanity beyond estimation. The little knowledge that has been recovered from damaged STC units is then utilized, copied, and stored by the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, who are based deep on the primary forge homeworld of Mars. They believe that STCs are the most holy of artifacts and will seek and protect them at any cost.
Any cost, okay.
This
All
little
right.
divergence is an important one
That
because
means something must have happened, like in a Warhammer story or whatnot, with like they had to do something crazy to get an STC.
at any cost.
I
This little
feel-
divergence is an important one because an STC recovery, no matter its state of repair, still remains as one of the most important objectives for Imperial forces in the 41st millennium.
Okay, okay.
The holy grail of this quest, though, although unlikely, would be to recover an intact STC, thereby gifting the Imperium all of the stored knowledge of mankind
They
from
can
the
just get
Golden Age
one.
of technology.
They're
If
set.
the Imperium were able to recover an STC of this standard, it would catapult the existing human society into becoming yet again one of the most advanced and significantly, if not the most powerful state in the galaxy. The STC Crusade also explains in part about the state of technology and development of the Imperium, in that much of the knowledge regarding tech is replicated or learned rather than invented and created. Although new tech does come along, it's not overtly specified why so little resources are put into research now. It could be speculated though, however, that mankind relied so strongly upon the Emperor in the last 10 millennia that now they believe only he is capable of directing mankind's advancement, and they solely focus on maintaining him and maintaining the state of imperial affairs.
I can see that. I thought also because they're just so busy like fighting because they're on the losing, because humanity's on the losing end right now in the war. I thought maybe they're just too busy like making troops, like Space Marines, to fight instead of researching, because they're like fighting like multiple races at this point. But I could see that
So
one
we
being
return to
too.
our story, and at this time in the golden age of technology, humanity continues to expand across the galaxy.
Right, okay,
Initially
yeah. We're
slowly,
back
as
here.
the gigantic starships we crafted were incapable of using the warp to traverse space. And as we learned previous, they took generations to reach their destination.
10 generations,
They were
yes.
essentially travelling worlds, similar to the Eldar craft world of the 41st millennium. When these ships reached their destination, they would slowly be deconstructed,
Yep,
and their materials
deconstructed.
could be used to create
You know,
massive
quick
war
little
machines
review.
such as the
Okay,
Imperial
or
Knights
recap.
and Titans, which the colony could use to defend themselves against the dangers of the galaxy.
Right.
Dangers such as the Eldar and Orcs, who were first discovered in this period as a result of our reaching out beyond our own system to more regularly explore the galaxy.
Okay, so back
However,
then we're fighting
interestingly,
Eldars and
during
Orcs.
this time, humanity was actually considered more powerful than it is in the 41st millennium.
Wait, hold on, let me hear that again.
Humanity was actually considered for the galaxy. However, interestingly, during this time, humanity was actually considered more powerful than it is in the 41st millennium.
I could see that because again, they had access to like crazy technology and used AI to make the technology in the golden age. So when fighting against the orcs, like they don't have technology like that. I mean, they have their imagination, but in the Eldar, I think were they suffering from the whole disaster? No, that didn't happen yet. No, I could see humans being the strongest at that time until so and so happened.
The
such and
strength
such
was
happened.
mainly due to our technology,
Yep,
rather
technology.
than actual physical forces, such as Astartes, who did not exist in this age.
Right.
Science was humanity's primary religion, and the
power of
society of
science.
man perceived itself as having reached a time where no one could be a real challenge to us. To a degree,
that
this was
confidence.
actually true, so much so that the Xenos races of Eldar and Orc actually signed non-aggression pacts
that's crazy.
with mankind.
Oh, that's
which seems
crazy.
bizarre from the Orc point of view, but there we are.
You made the orcs sign a treaty, a non-aggression treaty with the Eldars. The orcs love fighting. They're like, okay, hold on now. The humans are doing way too much now. They're getting a little too crazy now. Hold on now. Let's not fight the Eldars real quick. Let's focus our attention on the humans. They're getting a little too crazy now for our liking.
Mankind, which seems bizarre from the Orc point of view, but there we are. The discovery and use of interstellar drives, that is, an engine enabling cross-warp travel, now powered humanity's expansion and domination of the galaxy forward. A federated government was formed, enabling us to create a strong trade community and, most importantly, remain unified and powerful throughout our colonies spread across the galaxy, aiding and supporting where necessary with either materials, logistics or military. The exact form and nature of this federation is unknown from this time, as so much knowledge and history was lost. To speculate though,
Dang, how much
it
was the
seems
race
likely
back
that
then?
from the way in which humans would live at this time, the Federation would have focused more on discovery, science and working to live at this time was lost.
Not listening.
To speculate though, it seems likely that from the way in which humans would live at this time, the Federation would have focused more on discovery, science and working to better humanity, as well as supporting our widespread colonies.
Right, yeah.
As the societies we had seeded across the galaxy grew stronger and more developed, most humans would live long, peaceful lives where menial actions were carried out by automation.
Long, peaceful lives. How funny. How funny now. How funny now in the 40K universe. How funny.
Leaving people time to indulge in their own lives and dedicate themselves to the glorious expansion of mankind. This golden age of peace bears a stark contrast to the unforgiving brutality of the 41st millennium. The Imperium,
I just mentioned that,
many citizens are now wanting to lives that are shorter, work-driven, and even
ironic,
hellish by comparison.
Well, not funny what's happening to them.
Back with our timeline though, and although navigators had now been discovered and enabled interstellar travel, psychers, that is humans with strong psychic ability, had for the longest time evaded or simply passed undetected. It would be in the age of technology where this new class of human would finally be identified. These psychers seemingly largely avoided the demonic possessions which had occurred for the old ones, Orc and Eldar. It is unclear why this would be, but again you may speculate that the Emperor had a role to play in guiding and shielding humanity through this time. As we know, he had always lain in the shadows, ensuring our safety and creating small influence until he felt it was necessary to come to the fore. Another possibility is that by comparison, the Orcs and Eldar with their more advanced psychic powers simply shone brighter.
Time out. Do orcs have psychic powers? Wait, hold on. I didn't know orcs had psychic powers. I knew Eldars, of course, they had psychic powers, whatever. The orcs do? I thought they were more like, rawr, rawr. Whatever orcs have, like weapons, brutes. Okay. My fault, orcs. Respect on the orcs. Respect on my boys, the orcs.
Another possibility is that by comparison, the Orcs and Eldar with their more advanced psychic powers simply shone brighter. As we know, the demons of the warp are actually attracted to psychic power in real space, like moths to a lamp. And so they appeared amid the depths of the galaxy, a brighter beacon for the chaotic creatures to be attracted towards, whereas the human psychers were very early in development, their powers were less attractive, they did not stand out so much.
Makes sense.
These psychic mutations were initially limited to only a few individuals per billion or so humans, but toward the end of the age of technology, psychers would appear throughout the colonies more widespread than ever before. And some colonies who were advanced and open-minded, they could see the potential advantages brought by human psychers, and they were protected and allowed to develop and explore their abilities. However, on other, less advanced human colonies, they were often killed and hunted down, as the people here feared rather than embraced their divergent powers.
Like a Salem witch trials.
Much of, similar to witch hunts.
No, witch hunts,
As I hinted at earlier, one of the reasons during the golden age of technology that humanity was able to not only survive, but stretch itself out to colonize and conquer worlds in the galaxy, not to mention defending itself against aggressive Xenos, would be due to their reliance on AI and the machine creations of the time. However, as nearly all science fiction dictates, these primary sentient machines in the Human Galactic Federation would be known as the Men of Iron, and they would stereotypically turn on their creators and enter us into a cataclysmic war.
Why I fear AI. Like right now, I mean, it's already scary right now, like in the human, like real life, it's already scary a little bit with what AI can do. And it's like, they just trying to make it even more crazy, like, stop it. Just wait till we get the AI robots to like take care of us. Wait till that happens. Then it's all over. Then it's all over because they're gonna turn on us at one point because they're so sentient. It's gonna happen.
An STC
and I don't know what to do.
A template for the Men of Iron was discovered by Imperial forces
Humans are
on a
stupid. We're stupid.
chaos-controlled world. It became apparent that much as the Castigator...
What did you say? I saw chaos.
An STC containing a template for the Men of Iron was discovered by Imperial forces on a chaos-controlled world. It became apparent that much as the Castigator class Titan, the Men of Iron here had also been corrupted by chaos, and the AI of these creations was sentient. So we can perhaps speculate that the Men of Iron initially resented their human creators, but combined with this were also corrupted, possibly by chaos, which at the time was relatively unknown to mankind, hence the lack of any documentation to support such speculation. It is, however, a possibility and stacks up with what we know of the corruptibility of human AI creations. Also, the intent of the dark forces of chaos to obliterate humanity once it became aware of its existence. Regardless of the reason though, this war was one of the greatest disasters to befall humanity and would rage for centuries. The exact length of the war is not recorded. The conflict was eventually won by humanity, but at a great cost. The damage caused by this conflict to interstellar human society was hugely destructive. We would lose masses of knowledge and technology, not to mention devastating humanity's economic strength and political unity.
That's fine, but the technology's out.
Begin a series of events that would lead into the collapse of the Federation of Humanity at the end of the Age of Technology. As so often is the case, very little information exists from this time, largely due to the Imperium being so wary of a similar disaster happening again.
No more AI.
And this is why, amongst the Imperium and mankind, you'll find only the simplest forms of AI. It is viewed as being exceptionally dangerous technology and is strictly outlawed. A substitute is often to combine human and machine into mindless drone-like beings known as servitors.
Yep, the servitors. I remember doing a video a while back on like the worst jobs of the Imperium, basically, and the servitors were definitely on there. I'm putting them at the bottom of the bottom because I made like a little tier list, like I ranked them. I think I put them low. I don't think they're at the bottom, but I think they were pretty low though.
Servitors are the Imperium's
servitors is a horrible job to be.
Lacking true self-awareness and are created from the bodies of either condemned criminals who are unpleasantly lobotomized or vat-grown humanoids whose bodies and brains are partially replaced with machine systems. As a result of this catastrophic conflict between the men of iron and humanity in the golden age of technology, it is now considered one of the most severe crimes in Imperial society to develop a self-aware, artificially intelligent machine. It is just considered too dangerous to even consider. Around Millennium 23, the warp was taking hold of psychers and wreaking havoc on human colonies. Feudal night worlds were more conservative and less abiding of psychers, as we said previously.
God, what the heck? I just realized what I'm looking at. Ew. How does it even came to be? How? You should be dead.
Feudal night worlds were more conservative and less abiding of psychers, as we said previously, who had hunted them down. These would fare better than the others, who had adopted them more open-mindedly.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening at all. I was just looking at this horrific image.
Conservative and less
let me focus real quick.
Human colonies. Feudal night worlds were more conservative and less abiding of psychers, as we said previously, who had hunted them down. These would fare better than the others, who had adopted them more open-mindedly at the time. The knights in their semi-titan armor would battle massive warp entities and serve to protect the planet's human population, abiding to their strict code of feudal discipline and ability. Very often, they would be the bastions that protected mankind's worlds, and their importance cannot be underestimated at this time. As is often the case in history, it is not one but a series of disasters that leads to total ruination. And this was no exception for the glorious empire humanity had established during the Dark Age of technology. Whilst it was struggling to recover from a collapse in its unity, as well as destruction of many of its resources and its ability to trade efficiently with other worlds, a new disaster would occur that would see the end of humanity's golden age and instead throw us further into near total annihilation.
Strife.
The race of man would never again reach this golden pinnacle of technological achievement.
Okay, dang. That looks so beautiful too, but we'll never see such beautifulness again from the Imperium. But that's not true. That's not true. There's some beautiful sights I remember seeing in 40K on the Imperium side, but that level of like quality, like nah. We're probably never gonna reach that ever again. Well, I'm saying they're never gonna reach that ever again. it's just all chaos and blood and death now. All blood and death. All right, let's keep it going. Yep, the Age of Strife. Here we go. Do I remember this? Is this the Eldars thing? I think it's the whole Eldars and that.
As we learned in ancient Eldar lore, it was at this time that the Eldar out in the galaxy would fall into near total destruction. These would be dark days indeed,
this is
as
it.
the
Okay,
Eldar
I know what this
were
is.
almost wiped out in a cataclysmic annihilation,
Yep.
as the Chaos God Slanesh was born
There
into
it is,
existence
Slanesh.
from the horrifically depraved mire that Eldar society had fallen into.
Because those freaky freak Eldars couldn't calm themselves down, them bored freaky freaks. We're bored. Let's have fun. You know, let's go a little bit crazy. This is too boring for our taste. Let's be a little more adventurous.
These would be dark days indeed, as the Eldar were almost wiped out in a cataclysmic annihilation, as the Chaos God Slanesh was born into existence from the horrifically depraved mire that Eldar society had fallen into. This was a disaster for the Eldar, nearly extinguishing their light from the universe
99%,
completely.
95%.
But it didn't do humanity any favours either. The near destruction of the Eldar and birth of Slanesh only came to mark the end
Chaos God,
of
by
the
the way.
Age of Strife. What
This is a
caused
Chaos God.
prior to these events was the ever-expanding sea of psychic energy known as the War.
One more time.
To mark the end of the Age of Strife. What caused it prior to these events was the ever-expanding sea of psychic energy known as the Warp. For many millennia, this had been growing more and more powerful, fueled by the nightmarish depravity that was Eldar society.
Freaking Eldars.
Around the end of Millennium 24 and the beginning of 25, mankind was still struggling to recover from the disastrous war against its Men of Iron and its far-reaching impact on the previously secure and strong human federation. With their galactic unity destroyed, as well as suffering from the inevitable wounds of war, material shortages, mass loss of life and destruction of infrastructure, we would now face a new problem. Warp travel was becoming increasingly difficult. The warp's instability, caused in part by the Eldar's depraved psychic society, meant that many ships now would become lost and consumed by the warp as they were travelling through. This was not an issue for the Eldar themselves, as they used their webways to travel, which were outside of that warp space. For humanity, though, it would be a severe problem, and its impact would deal the fatal blow to an already fragile empire. The losses and damage caused by the war with the Men of Iron, combined with now being unable to travel across the warp to cross those great distances in the galaxy, would ultimately return humanity to a pre-Dark Age of technology state, where only sublight travel was possible. This was a disaster. Trade and support could no longer be conducted, as these journeys would now take generations to complete. Humanity was once again isolated, as it had been millennia before. The warp storms and the isolation they would create.
Oh, I didn't mention this. I like the music choice. I like the music choice he's put in the background. Great.
It will last for over 5,000 years, and their effect on human society across the galaxy was catastrophic. Some planets with a significantly advanced human colony would survive into the future if they had the means to defend and support themselves. It's important to understand that when a system is set up with no established backup, its collapse has an immediate and profound impact. This was the case with mankind's trade system. It had grown over time to enable many planets to survive solely on imports from other rich parts of the human federation. Without this infrastructure and no way to gain outside support, disaster was inevitable. Many would turn inwardly to the colony, consuming themselves from the inside out, first with barbaric civil war and later total anarchy, fighting over the scarce resources that remained.
History repeats itself. I mean, well, not really. Okay, well, that history is different from our history, but yeah, they got nothing to do. They can't get any food from like what they usually do. They start fighting inside. Now, when you become hungry and starved, you start doing some crazy things.
The final phase often led the significantly depleted population into a feudal system of warlords and barbarism. This chaos was repeated across the majority of human worlds in this period, even including Earth. At this time on Earth, large areas across the planet had become massive cities reaching for hundreds of miles, and having become adapted to a system where all activities were conducted by machines, Earth also now relied heavily on trade from colonized worlds to support the extremely high population count. Additionally, much of the planet was no longer capable of food production.
Why can't we get like a crazy looking, not crazy looking, but like, I feel like an RPG Warhammer game would go crazy. I don't know if that exists or not. Maybe I'm just talking crazy because I like RPG games, but just like imagine the story you can tell with Warhammer. It's just like, it should get more fun. And I think Warhammer has a great potential to be like, make some amazing games, some standout games. I know they had like some RTS games, some not a third person action, I don't know what to call that, Space Marine 2 game, but they have some great stories I can tell, I feel. And they were just giving some more, a chance, I feel, with the studio. Or maybe not an RPG, but maybe like a third person action game with like, crazy looking set pieces. So I've been seeing some animations from Warhammer, like just like overall, not even from the games, it's overall. Oh, nice. I'm doing nice.
And hadn't been for millennia. Hence the need for colonies and expansion in the first place. With the inability to travel and trade, Earth descended into a similar fate of the less advanced worlds. First panic and general disorder, then food riots, resource hoarding, and finally complete anarchy.
Yo, Sony, give them $200 million to make a game.
Was all that remained of the few survivors left on Earth, brutal warriors who battled out across the deserts and hives of the remnants of civilization. This whole situation might sound unbelievable that society could collapse so quickly.
It makes sense to me. It makes sense to me.
But it's worth considering that in this time, human society had built itself up to be so strong in belief of its own invincibility that they simply did not and could not have anticipated the severity of the warp storms or how they would debilitate the trade and support systems that they had been relying upon.
Yeah, they were super reliant on technology, like super reliant on technology. It makes sense they would just crumble like that once this got taken away. And the whole use of warp thing, it doesn't help them either. They're like, man, we really can't, we don't got any food, we can't get any help. What do we do?
Human history is littered with examples of sheer arrogance outweighing logic and reason, as well as blindly staring down dangerous facts in favour of belief in our own self-importance. The lack of planning when it comes to losing their infrastructure across human systems was an acute example of human arrogance. It would now seem as well that whatever had protected human psyches from demonic possession would now end. It's my speculation that, as previously stated, the Emperor was what provided this shielding, even though he was not known to humanity at this time.
He's probably helping.
For he knew the power, importance and value of human psyches in the dark times that would lie ahead. Without this bubble of protection that had invisibly existed prior to this time, humanity's weak psyches would be consumed, possessed, and go completely insane, causing chaos among isolated, colonized worlds. This period of complete anarchy would last for some 5,000 years, and during this time, many colonies would forget their family out in the galaxy, as well as losing vast amounts of technology and knowledge. Only fragments of the glory of humanity would remain, preserved on the advanced worlds who were capable to survive this dark time. By the 28th millennium, almost all traces of civilization on Earth were gone. Instead, techno-barbarians battled one another over the scraps of the ancient human race. Mars, however, was one of the few worlds to undergo a different process. After a brief period of anarchy, the tech priests of the cult Mechanicus emerged victorious over the Psyker mutants, and then unified their homeworld. The priests visited Earth, but upon seeing its barren destruction, wrote it off as unsalvageable.
Oh dang, they say
we can't save this. Titans we can't save Earth. To help them in the future reunification of man. They would also be one of the few worlds to reach out and recolonize planets in this time. Using their knowledge of the warp, they chose moments of calm amid the storms of the time in the warp to travel through and establish new forge worlds.
Let's go, Duchess Mechanicus, let's go!
These were replicas of the tech homeworld of Mars and enabled them to continue support and recovery of the technology of man, as well as production of munitions and simpler war machines. But for humanity, its golden age was over. This dark age of technology had fallen apart catastrophically. Many of the weapons that once served mankind brought us to near destruction and turned lush garden worlds into irradiated deserts. Mechanical factory worlds into dystopian nightmares, beautifully advanced and artistic colonies turned into barbaric, nightmarish hells devoid of all morality. The age of strife was upon mankind, and only the further darkness of the future lay ahead.
I bet this is like also fueling the power of the what god was it? What chaos god is that? Crap. Born? I think he's like goddess of like anger, like pain, not pain, but like fighting, like I don't know what to call it, because it's like 4 chaos gods. It's not Slanesh, it's not was it Nurgle? It's not Inch? Man, though, it's like a weird name. It has to be corn. It has to be corn. I think it's still in his power since, you know, humans are just fighting each other. I think he's just getting more stronger if that's how that works. I think that's how that works. I could be wrong, but let me just keep it moving. It's already a long video. Keep it moving? Keep it moving.
Roughly 5,000 years later, around the period of millennium 30 to 31, human society had reached a state of pitiful decay after cannibalizing itself for millennia. The Eldar had also reached the peak of their social decay, and so heralded the agonizing birth of the chaos god Slanesh, who would consume the majority of their population in one cataclysmic event that brought Eldar society to the brink of extinction. This horrific event, though, would have a positive outcome for mankind. It consumed all of that stored turbulent warp energy, so after thousands of years of instability, the warp returned to relative calm. Interstellar communication and travel would once again be possible for the civilization of mankind.
Chapter 6, the Emperor of Man and the Unification Wars. Okay. I believe this is when the Emperor of Man finally is like, you know what? Let me step onto the scene and save this. Save my race. Which is crazy he didn't do it beforehand, but hey, this is master plan. Whatever he's planning is his plan.
So the Age of Strife was coming to an end, but before we move forward, we need to move back some 2,000 years
never mind, we're going back.
to
Forget what I said.
Humanity had now come close to the brink of destruction itself. So many worlds had fallen into disarray, starvation, chaos, anarchy.
Like Mad Max.
Now was the time. This would be the time
I was right.
where the mysterious and powerful Psyker who had wandered amongst humanity for thousands of years would come to the fore to lead humanity from an edge of unsalvageable darkness back into the light and resume their place as a meaningful power in the galaxy. Earth had by now been reduced to a chemically irradiated barren wasteland, its population slaughtered, and all that remained were degenerate feral nomads fighting for irrelevant territories. Insane wandering prophets and cyber-augmented techno-barbarians who lived for nothing other than to fight, created in the cradle of world-ending war. Frail empires would rise and disintegrate as quickly and forgettably as they had risen. No tribe or faction had enough power or resources to make any meaningful stand, and so it went on, pathetic fighting over the remnants of a ravaged world.
He's decapitated? I tell you what, Luton can definitely set a scene up. I'll tell you that. He's great with words. I am very invested. And we're back. We got what, 20 minutes, 30 minutes left? We're cool.
Out of this seemingly endless horror came a single man, a warlord like no other. His title in these early days is unknown, but we would know who he would rise to become: the Emperor of Man. He would first conquer and then rebuild humanity, leading it into the light, saving it from itself to form his autocracy, known as the Imperium of Mankind. Unlike so many before him, though, he had power not only as an unstoppable warrior, but in many other traits such as rational thinking, tactics, philosophy, economics, compassion, foresight, and perhaps most importantly, a genius of science, everything and more that would be required for a supreme leader.
This man had everything. He hit the reset button.
Not for selfish personal gain or bloodlust of war like all the other scattered remnants of humanity left on Earth. He had selfless, higher goals to restore humanity spiritually, intellectually, and physically, to revert us to a time of strength and prosperity.
Definitely physically.
These
we
were
need
the
that right
years
now.
Of the Unification Wars. The Emperor had long held a facility deep in a range of mountains previously known as the Himalayas. This was his most significant stronghold and would later become the Imperial Palace. Here he experimented with genetics as well as developing and constructing weapons and armor for his warriors.
Glorious.
In the earliest days, he would physically and genetically augment some of the most powerful barbarians. These humanoids would become known as the Thunder Warriors.
The Thunder Warriors. I believe, you just mentioned, I think there were two different warriors or forces before Space Marines became a thing.
The very first of their kind and the most basic template for what would eventually become the Imperial Space Marines, the Astartes, the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Under unsurmountable pressure from the Emperor's army of Thunder Warriors, the barbaric factions fell quickly and humanity was united on old Earth for the first time in centuries. This, however, would come at a terror on old greatest warriors in the galaxy. Under unsurmountable pressure from the Emperor's army of Thunder Warriors, the barbaric factions fell quickly, and humanity was united on Old Earth for the first time in centuries. This, however, would come at a terrible cost for the Thunder Warriors themselves, and is one of the least known, yet darkest events for mankind. In order to unify Earth and bring humanity back on the path of advancement and strength, the Emperor had found it necessary to in part cleanse the savagery that had grown on the war-torn planet. This sadly meant the death of many arguable innocents during the Unification Wars, as well as the eradication of the last remaining religious church on Earth, known as the Church of the Lightning Stone. The Emperor is known to have personally spoken to the last remaining priest before bringing in his new age of enforced secular rationalism and the ideology known as the Imperial Truth. This essentially tells that humanity are now those destined to be the rulers of the galaxy. The Eldar had their chance and failed, and now humanity are the best set to take their place as the dominant force. This ideology would soon be brought to all the scattered worlds of humanity in the long crusade that was yet to come.
Okay, so you talk to the last priest basically saying, hey, you about to raid your place, so get ready. Is that what he's basically said to him?
Now, the official version of things tells how the last battle of the Unification Wars takes place on Mount Ararat. This siege to cleanse the last of the techno-barbarians from the ruined wastes on Earth and finally bring it back to a time of peace and growth was said to be so brutal that waves of Thunder Warriors fell against the rocks and resistance were slain to a single man. The legendary warrior Aric Taranis, the Lightning Bearer.
Taranis, hold on, let me write that down. He did what? he did what to the Thunder Warriors?
The waves of Thunder Warriors fell against the rocks and resistance were slain to a single man. The legendary warrior Aric Taranis.
Aric Taranis. Alright, let me put some respect on his name. My fault. Let me write that down. Usually I don't do this on recording, but nah, this man said, yeah, I'm a one-man army. You're not getting past me. I put respect on his name.
The Lightning Bearer. He would raise the banner of lightning to mark the end of the Unification Wars, setting in place the rule of the Emperor of Man.
Wait, no, I misheard him again. What did he say?
So brutal that waves of Thunder Warriors fell against the rocks and resistance were slain to a single man. The legendary warrior Aric Taranis.
I heard it right.
He would raise the banner of lightning to mark the end of the Unification Wars, setting in place the rule of the Emperor of Man, before he too would fall to fatal wounds suffered in this battle of legend. As with many things,
I must have misheard it. I think I misheard it, because he put the flag down for the Emperor.
The actuality of the event was darker and far more sinister. The Emperor knew that in order to restore peace, growth, and a sense of civilization to his new and expanding empire, he would require a more stable and balanced force than the Thunder Warriors, who were essentially just adept brutes recruited from the wasteland, albeit clad in the earliest Imperial armor.
Right.
In a necessary betrayal, the Emperor realized that in order to safeguard what he had achieved, his army of barbaric fighters could not exist past this time.
Oh shoot, yes, right. I forgot about this.
Actually ordered the many Thunder Warriors who had survived the final battle to be slaughtered by his elite guard, and possibly even some of the early proto-Astartes, who were at this time far advanced beyond most of his standard force.
That has to be messed up. Like, you over here, you spent your entire years just fighting for someone you believe to like help you stir humanity in the right direction. You're like, man, I did a good job, I lived, my men died on the battlefield, but hey, at least it wasn't in vain. You get home, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, so the Emperor said you gotta go because, you know, for his future goals. And he's just like killing all your people. That's wild. I mean, it's for the greater good, I guess, but it's just like, dang. There wasn't another way we could have went about this?
Proto-Astartes.
Like, there wasn't no other option?
Far advanced beyond most of his standard force. This terrible secret has been concealed from the people of the Imperium for more than 10,000 years. And were it ever to be revealed, the consequences could be
they don't know about it.
unimaginably
Okay, only we know
disastrous.
about it. Okay.
The Emperor, though, saw this necessary evil had to come to pass for the greater good.
How?
A sacrifice of the few to save the many who would come. The Thunder Warriors were built for war, and war alone, and would not be able to adapt to a time of peace. and could even have turned a vital tool into a dangerous, unstable threat that could unbalance all that he had achieved. In order for the next stage of his plans, he also required that humanity rally behind him as the sole and most powerful force. The slaughter of the Thunder Warriors was not the last act of betrayal though by the Emperor. He would then take the necessary glory that he had near single-handedly reunified Terra. This distortion of the truth, while hugely distasteful, does appear largely necessary.
Actually, that one seems necessary,
and create the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. Nonetheless, should the truth ever arise, it would at best split apart the Imperium and at worst destroy it. These choices by the Emperor are important to remember in the context of his character, as it can lead to certain logical speculations regarding future events.
Like one event that's coming up pretty soon, I think, if I remember correctly. Started with a little H, ends in a little heresy, if I remember correctly.
Some Thunder Warriors would find fate on their side and escape this mass killing and live on as homeless unknowns, seeking out a miserable existence at the bottom of society. Honours forgotten, their deeds meaningless,
That's messed
all the
up,
while fearing constant discovery from the Imperium and certain death. This heartless betrayal was surely one of the darkest periods in Imperial history. They were never hunted, though, in any significant way. The Emperor believed them all dead, and besides, there were far more important tasks at hand, as the Emperor now gathered a team of gene wrights salvaged from the few remaining humans on Earth. These were men with practical knowledge of genetics to aid in his development of the new Astartes project. Those Thunder Warriors who did escape were not like the Astartes of the 41st millennium. They were genetically unstable, and most significantly, they only had a minimally extended mortality beyond that of a regular human, unlike the Space Marines who can live on for thousands of years.
So probably like 20 more years.
The Emperor had been working for decades on his Astartes project, deep within his mountain facility. Here he would create the vital foundations that would springboard humanity into a new age. His experiments would create the 20 Space Marine legions known as the Legiones Astartes, as well as 20 Primarchs to lead each legion. These 20 supreme leaders of the soon-to-come Space Marine legions were crafted by the Emperor using samples of his own arcane genetic code as the base. It is obviously unknown the depth of which the Emperor used his own DNA to create the Primarchs, but later findings through ancient Imperial records do hint that he spliced multiple DNA types together, even going so far as to introduce some animal DNA into the Primarchs. And this would explain why some, such as Leman Russ, would display the wolf-like qualities, and why these would then become present throughout the Space Wolves Legion and Chapter. It is difficult to speculate on the Emperor's true goals here, and even if he was successful in the mixing of DNA in this way, it seems highly experimental, and perhaps he himself was not sure of the final result. This period
No, the Emperor knew. The Emperor always knows everything. He knows everything.
Of intelligent design was hasty and somewhat improvised given the dire situation facing mankind. It needed to repopulate its military power in order to springboard and take stage fights forward to reconquer the colonies. Another point of speculation is how closely the Primarchs were imbued with spiritual elements and others such as unnaturally skillful charisma and so on. Still though, in creating the Primarchs and even taking small elements of the Emperor's DNA, it imbued them with these demi-godlike characteristics. It also explains why at this time the barely known forces of chaos would seek out and scatter the developing Primarchs before the Emperor's plans could grow into fruition. Why at this time the barely known forces of chaos would seek out and scatter the developing Primarchs before the Emperor's plans could grow into fruition.
Wait, I thought they got scattered for a different reason. I thought it was not the Emperor's wife, but like somebody close to Emperor. I thought like she might have misheard or overheard Emperor's plans with the Primarchs developing and decided to scatter them, like send them to different planets or worlds. I thought that's why they got scattered, the Primarchs. But it was chaos? Hold on.
Little is known of this Primarch scattering. The Emperor's chaos would seek out and scatter. Explains why at this time the barely known forces of chaos would seek out and scatter the developing Primarchs before the Emperor's plans could grow into fruition. Little is known of
back
this
then.
Primarch scattering event, but it has been suggested that the dawning forces of chaos felt this expanding power from humanity to threaten them, and in an effort to slow or negate it, they reached out into the mortal world to seize and scatter the fetal Primarchs across the galaxy.
Yeah.
Each world they found themselves on would surely in time come to realise that they were far from normal, often finding themselves as a natural leader in command of the systems that would become their home. Later the Emperor would one by one discover and reunite the Primarchs with their legions, establishing one of the most powerful military forces the galaxy had ever seen. The Thunder Warriors, though, were undoubtedly the early prototypes for the Astartes project, which subsequently makes their untimely end all the more tragic, as their sacrifice was so great, yet the memory of them was totally obliterated.
Real quick, guys, real quick. R.I.P. to the Thunder Warriors. R.I.P. I mean, some of them are still alive, a couple of them are alive, but R.I.P. to them, their legacy, what they did for the Unification of Wars. R.I.P. to them. And if Eric Tarnas was a member of them, because I don't know yet, I'm gonna look that up. R.I.P. to that man too. That man was going crazy, I heard. Alright, let's get it going. Salute!
The Astartes project would continue in a pragmatic manner. Each of the early legions at this time contained barely a few hundred marines. Their equipment was lightweight and somewhat improvised by comparison to later standards. They trained their minds and bodies to be the will, might and rule of the Emperor. Time would pass and their numbers grew. Each legion was divided not only for organizational reasons, but also for practical reasons. Because of their adapted genetics that were drawn from the Primarchs, some carried traits and psychological behaviors which would not have been found comfortable comparison with their sibling legions. This segregation also allowed them to focus their bond to their brothers in their own legion, creating a near unbreakable kinship between Astartes. If the newly created Astartes would be the Emperor's scalpel, his gleaming pinnacle of human achievement, then the Thunder Warriors were certainly a mace used to bludgeon the remnants of humanity back into submission. The Thunder Warriors were genetically stronger though, tougher, and could even be stronger in battle than the newly created Astartes, which is something people often forget.
I didn't know that. I thought they were like weak compared to them. Oh, okay, my fault. Again, more respect to them.
They were a rough, brutal instrument, but ultimately a temporary solution to a violent problem. The Space Marines would serve not only as a weapon, but as beacons to mankind, a glimmer of what humanity could hope to be. The dark times to come, however, would show that this was a misplaced belief, that while the Space Marines were created to represent the pinnacle of human development, they ultimately proved as susceptible to the basic flaws of mankind as any other mortal. The Emperor's campaign on Earth would now come to a close. He began establishing the fundamental elements of a civilized, modernized society in government administration, economy and infrastructure. An important figure in this process was a man known as Malcador, the Sigillite. He had a vast knowledge of such matters and carried himself with the bearing of a priest. He was appointed to run the courts and palaces of the new empire, the right-hand man of the Emperor.
Oh wow,
Earth would turn from a place of desolation and horror to one of active production, rebuilding and planning.
Making that progress.
Some might call it coincidentally convenient, but at this time a vast shockwave would travel through the galaxy, the birth of Slaanesh. Humanity would have no idea of the significance of this, only that it cleared the storms from the warp that had isolated and ruined humanity's gloriously technologically advanced empire. Again though, we could speculate that the Emperor had foreseen these events and the necessity of preparing Earth for this time. On Mars, the humans of the cult Mechanicus, that is those who worship machines, would become aware of this unification on Earth, as information through distant communication and physical observation unification on Earth. That is those who worship machines would become aware of this unification on Earth, as information through distant communication and physical observations. They viewed this new emperor as a man in alignment with their own agenda. Mars, during the Dark Age of technology, had been a planet with a single purpose, a powerhouse of production for this age, consolidating ships and weapons, including the vast Titans, hundreds of feet tall, gigantic bipedal war machines whose very presence could end conflicts before they began. Since the end of this age, cults had risen across Mars, and the most prevalent of these was the Mechanicus, whose ideology included the veneration and acquisition of these ancient but highly advanced technologies from the period known as the Dark Age of Technology.
Right.
During the period of isolation known as the Age of Strife, Mars had undergone a similar societal collapse comparable to that of Earth. With all trade cut off, they had insufficient water and food to supply the populace. A civil war would follow, as well as the collapse of some planetary infrastructures that shielded their little remaining hydroponics and food production systems. This would lead to a further collapse of the already fragile supporting systems.
Yeah, I didn't know that about Mars. I didn't know they also had their own strife, their own infight and civil wars going on. Did not know that. Okay.
The Techs, an established Mechanicum, decided the best way to survive this apocalypse would be to retreat into underground bunkers which had been mined out, creating vast cities below the surface. Little is known at this time, but evidently prior to their seclusion, the Mechanicum Techs were a cult who would bear a respect and drive to recover, protect and utilize the lost technologies of mankind. Upon their rise from the subterranean depths, they had in this time translated this over into a complete faith. The tech priests of the Mechanicum, along with their troops, would very quickly subdue the insane irradiated savages who remained on the surface and begin the process of rebuilding and redeveloping Mars to be completely self-sufficient. This, in combination with their access to some of the most powerful war machines ever forged in the galaxy, would without doubt leave the Mechanicus in a position of some power. To the cult of Mechanicus, who were now becoming aware of this emperor figure who had surfaced on Terra, a man of science and technology, this was obviously appealing to the Mechanicus, and some tech priests on Mars even began to suggest that the emperor was a man of such power as to rival their own machine god and fulfill an ancient prophecy in their faith of techno-mysticism. Debates raged on Mars between the priesthood regarding how to treat this new development. All the while, the Emperor, bearing his power of immense foresight, would not be ignorant of the Mechanicum, and he slowly and steadily would begin to craft his new plans accordingly.
What was his plan?
Plan for a crusade on a galactic scale never before seen. Its purpose? To locate the lost Primarchs, to reunite the territories of humanity, forge a new Imperial Empire, and thrust the Imperium of Man into a position of complete dominance and power throughout the galaxy.
That's a crazy plan. Insane.
The Emperor's plan was one of absolute submission. Anyone who stood against the Imperial truth would be cleansed and destroyed.
Gotta die.
The Mechanicum of Mars was one of the few exceptions. The Emperor knew that any battle to try and claim dominance over the cult Mechanicum would be hugely counterproductive.
You see that? You see that Titan that Titan or is that Iron Knight? You see that mechanical being right there? You do not want to mess with that, humans. Don't mess with them. Leave them alone. You don't want that fight.
To try and claim dominance over the cult Mechanicum would be hugely counterproductive. Even if he could claim victory over them, the cost to his new Astartes force would be severe and unjustified. So he planned instead to offer a rare alliance with the Council of Tech Priests. In offering them assistance in their own goals and acquisitions of new and lost tech throughout the galaxy, they would provide support, construction of war gear, and tech to Imperial forces. They also were one of the exceptional entities to be allowed to maintain a state of semi-independence within the Imperium, a fairly unique position. The Emperor would also provide a new group of navigators to enable the Mechanicum to travel through the warp again in search of fabled STC units. All of this suited the Mechanicum and Imperium in a symbiotic relationship, and an alliance was created.
They said, hey, we don't want to mess with you guys. You help us, we can help each other. I know the Emperor said, hey, there can't be no gods, don't believe in any religion, but you guys, you abducted Mechanicus, y'all cool. Y'all do what you want to do. Believe in your tech god, the homicide. Oh, you believe in them? We don't want no quarrels. Just help us regain the Primarchs that we lost. Help us go back to the colonies and get them back to normal, because we haven't had interaction with them for years and they're over here suffering. And let's get back on top. Humans on top. 1, 2, 3, humans on top. And we're back. We're almost to the end of the video. We got 20 minutes left in case anybody was wondering. but it's time for the Great Crusade and the Fall of the Eldars. Chapter 7. This is a part 2 after this. I'm wondering what the part 2 is.
Until we reach the beginning of Millennium 31. With Mars now allied to the Emperor's Imperium, the Legiones Astartes war machine had significantly expanded. The Mechanicum would provide the battle barges needed to transport the Space Marines throughout the galaxy. They also brought to the table the Titans, some of the most powerful war machines ever created. Their very presence on approaching a humanoid system would often be enough to prevent a conflict. The shock and awe of facing such incomprehensible opponents would quickly lead a populace to understand they had no hope of preventing the Imperial Expeditionary Forces from achieving their goals. The Crusade would initially be led by the Emperor himself as he commanded a massive fleet of Astartes.
He's like, we're not messing up. We're not messing this up.
As the Crusade gathered pace and the Primarchs were recovered, these expeditionary fleets would number in the thousands. Before we talk about the Crusade itself though, which I have tried to condense as much as possible, I want to first talk briefly on the Astartes or Space Marines.
Let's do it.
Now a regular
So is it called... No, they're called Space... Well, I guess they're like... You can use whatever word you want to use, like name you want to use. So I'm going to use Space Marines. Alright, Space Marines!
Conception about Space Marines is that because they wear near identical armour and were originally produced via a variation of cloning, or at least grown in a lab, that they somehow have no personality or little differentiation between them. It is also often assumed that Space Marines will blindly follow any commands given to the letter, no matter the consequences. After all, they are the superior, unquestioning warriors in the universe, right?
Okay, that first one, I was like, no, that's not true. The second one, I thought they do follow the letter. They don't go against the words of their Primarch or whoever the leader is in that group. Oh, I was wrong. Okay, let me hear.
Both of these myths is fundamentally wrong. Each Space Marine is an individual person with their own character, traits, to an extent personal principles. There are many documented events in which these human elements would have a role to play in subsequent events. Space Marines, although superhuman, are still human, and as such the Emperor deemed it necessary to...
And they're also kids. And they're basically kids too. Well, are they kids still? Like, I know, like, you know, the whole Space Marine process, like how you get recruited and all that. I know how messed up it is. Are they, like, they're like kids forced to be adults. So are they still kids or are they like adults? Well, no, it's because you had to, I don't know. I think they're still adults. I think they're adults.
Those superhuman are still human, and as such the Emperor deemed it necessary to have a senior position with whom Astartes could use as a point of reference to discuss matters of morality, to understand their purpose, their mission, and sometimes to give guidance beyond purely military matters during the Crusade and the expeditionary forces.
And another thing, if the Space Marines didn't have personalities, we wouldn't have the Horus Heresy event.
Enter the Iterators.
That sounds familiar.
Imperial Iterators were the most persuasive of public speakers. They are masters of manipulating a crowd's opinion, and Iterators would counsel also Marines as they voyaged through the galaxy. But their role went beyond this and was critical at the inception of the Great Crusade. They were placed among the expeditionary forces to aid in reuniting humanity and turning lost human civilizations to the Imperial cause. The Emperor appointed them to spread the Imperial truth. Truths such as the rejection of religious faith to enforce secular rule, and unnecessary wasteful squabbling over power and resources. These were all seen as significantly counterproductive and opposite to the objectives of the Imperium. The first Primarch to be reunited with the Imperial fleet was Horus of the Lunar Wolves.
It was Horus? Really? That's very interesting. That's very interesting. He was the first one reunited.
He greatly admired the Iterators' work, so much so that he asked them to also tutor his captains and legionnaires. Horus believed that once the Crusade was completed, there would be an end to the war, and that the Astartes would first need to find a peacetime location.
That's funny.
The most famous Iterator during the Great Crusade was primary Iterator Kyril Sindaman, who served aboard Horus's flagship. Iterators are seen as the precursors to Imperial Guard commissars and Astartes chaplains. The iterators and then later the chaplains are an example of the more human services required by Space Marines. Documented records have shown that they have been regularly known to question ethics, purpose, and even their own morality, despite an Astartes essentially being immortal. They are destined to die in battle, as that is their true purpose. And despite this predefined fate, they are far from the emotionless drones that some would assume.
Because they've probably seen a lot of hordes in the battlefield. They're like, hey, I don't know if I can take this anymore. I've done some crazy things, some unmoral things. They probably have someone to talk to, like a counselor. Like, hey, what's going on here? What do I do?
They are a living embodiment of humanity, a distillation of spirit and mind. The Emperor's Great Crusade to reunify humanity had begun in earnest. This was an operation on a truly epic scale. Millions of troops, tens of thousands of ships forged by the Mars Mechanicum. This would be humanity's defining moment, to reach out and forge the greatest empire in the galaxy. The Imperial forces comprised soldiers, naval officers, and most importantly, the Astartes legions. They were configured and divided into expeditionary fleets supported by all manner of cruisers, transports, scout teams, dropships, and so on.
Oh, yeah, we meant business. They meant
commanded
business.
by the Emperor and his war council, but also by individuals
picture.
placed in charge of these expeditionary forces. It's important to remember that these forces were as much exploratory as they were tasked with an important mission. A great deal of time had passed during the Age of Strife, as well as incalculable quantities of data had been lost in the process. The Imperial forces simply didn't know exactly where all the colonies were, nor their status. Had they been destroyed in civil war, alien genocide, or perhaps the opposite, and expanded to a degree where they would not need aid, but instead submission? All of these were unknowns. Many locations could be estimated as to whether or not they had been colonized in the past. The Mechanicum could provide some information from past scripture as to where human colonies had been located, although more importantly, they wanted to know where we could find ancient and undiscovered technology.
Yeah, we could tell you where, these colonies could be at, but we don't really care about this ancient technology. Like any SCCs, you grab that shit immediately and give it to us.
The expeditionary fleet would even initiate a search on the basis of myths and rumour. No stone was to be left unturned in the search for the lost civilizations of mankind. Before they embarked on their journey though, one other important task was required. Although the warp storms had subsided, allowing travel once again across great distances, the navigator class from the past that would guide ships through the warp. This system though was far from perfect, and the Emperor had a greater plan. On Earth, the Emperor ordered construction of the Great Astronomicon. Tech priests from Mars were drafted in to aid in this project, and its purpose would be to enable the Emperor to guide, oversee, and command his vast fleet all from Terra. It created a system for him to focus, amplify, and broadcast psychic signals and energy. It would stand as an unchanging marker, a lighthouse for the navigators, a point of reference around which they could plan all their travels. This certainly was an important factor in the success of the Crusade, as it enabled the navigators to travel through the warp in great leaps and faster than they ever had done before.
Yeah, any mistakes that could
in addition
happen,
to this, the Emperor would also create the Astropaths. These were powerful psychers whose sole task would be in relaying communications from the fleet and later the established Imperium back to the ruling council on Terra. The vast distances involved meant that the Astropaths would become the only communication link between Terra and the distant colonies. However, as with the Eldar, the risk of possession to the Astropaths by warp demons consuming the psychers and thereby enabling them to travel into the material world was one that the Emperor was all too aware of, especially after his Primarchs had been scattered throughout the galaxy.
You're not getting me this time in chaos.
The Astropaths would undergo an extreme and harsh process of toughening against the threat of warp entities. The Emperor,
let me guess, people died from this trial, from this process, just to make sure they didn't become corrupted, which makes sense, but it's like, dang.
The Emperor himself would manipulate and reform their mind into a protective vessel, making them nearly immune to risks from the warp. This process, though, was agonizing and extremely dangerous. Many psychers were killed in the process or went completely insane. Even if they survived the process, a universal effect would see their optic nerves become damaged beyond repair. This meant all Astropaths are blind.
Dang.
From the Imperial perspective though, this was a necessary consequence as they continued to be an integral part of Imperial infrastructure. The Crusades had begun, and alongside Space Marines were hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Imperial troops, humans who were salvaged from the aftermath of Terra and structured into an effective, albeit expendable fighting force. This Imperial Guard was strengthened and resupplied as they reconnected and conquered lost human colonies. A secondary benefit was that in drafting local military forces into the expeditionary force, it removed these planets' ability to rebel effectively against the newly created Imperial outposts on each planet. Also, in these early days, taxes and tribute to the Imperium were not strictly required, but Imperial commanders stationed on new colonies of the Imperium would often require supplies for the continuing crusade. Many systems and colonies would need help rebuilding or periods after generations of schooling by iterators to bring them in line and around to the Imperial truth and loyalty to the Imperium. Some worlds though who were self-sufficient had survived intact and would even welcome the arriving Imperial forces with open arms as long-awaited brothers, with
Space
glorious
Marines!
celebrations and immediate support, much to the satisfaction and pride of the expeditionary forces who were all too happy to welcome their brothers back to the Imperium. Such events were a blessing to behold though, as many worlds were either barren wastes long since destroyed, with only ruined remains to prove that anyone had ever existed there. Or they were found to be locked in brutally tyrannical dictatorships and required sometimes days, often weeks of orbital and ground assault to subdue and conquer these false dictators.
That must be crazy, because again, they're all humans, and it's like, yeah, I know we've been gone for like 10, 20 years, or 1,000 years, whatever, probably not that long, but like, listen, we're going to beat you up so you can, not beat you up, we're going to have to kill some of you guys so you can fall in line with our orders, our truth. All for the Imperium. You're not falling in line, we're going to have to kill you. We're going to have to murder some people.
Religious doctrine and faith were especially highlighted to be crushed on all worlds. The Emperor would never allow these practices to infringe or threaten the Imperium, as he was partly responsible and had even seen the effects these caused on humanity millennia ago in the first age of mankind. The Emperor also made an important choice that upon arrival to New Worlds, any psykers discovered were told to expect transport back to Terra, courtesy of secretive black ships. Here, they would be tested on their journey back to Earth to their limit. They would endure nightmarish examination, some dying from the trials or executed for being just too unstable. Others, though, ended up completely losing their minds in the process of these harsh examinations.
Are you chaos?
The fate of these individuals was at the time unknown. It later transpired that if they were proven strong and capable enough in manipulating their psychic power, they would become stock for creating new astropaths by the Emperor. Any younger but highly powerful psykers were subsequently distributed to some of the Space Marine legions who had begun a Librarius program, creating special Astartes who were capable of wielding immense psychic power. Others, though, disappeared from record entirely, leading to supposition of secret organizations who even today are not fully disclosed.
Well, dang.
The Crusade continued for centuries, stretching out across the galaxy. Finally, the Primarchs were reunited with their legions and were duly given positions on the Crusade and Imperial War Council. The Primarch figures, though, were not suited to this level of administration. They were at their best out among their Marines leading campaigns. So it fell to the administrators of Man to run the day-to-day Crusade infrastructure. One important figure arises again, that of Malcador the Sigillite. He would become a keystone in the execution of the Crusade and one of the most loyal and valuable members of the Imperial Council. The power of the Imperium had now reached its peak. There seemed to be little, if anything, that could threaten, damage or destabilize the glory and power of the now reunited Imperium of Man. The Crusade had in fact been so successful that after a chain of impressive victories, the Emperor decided he could fully return to Terra to continue managing his plans there and working on new secret projects.
Like, my job's done. There's nothing that can go wrong now. Nothing at all can go wrong to mess this up. We did it, guys. We're about to be on top. Humanity.
The Primarchs were surely more than capable of finishing the now simple task of scouting and securing any fringe colonies and bringing the Crusade to a successful conclusion. After a specifically great victory on Ulanor, the Emperor selected the first Primarch and commander of the Lunar Wolves, known as Horus Lupercal, and bestowed upon him the title of War Master. This title established him as a leader of the Imperium military forces in lieu of the Emperor, and all other Primarchs and Imperial forces would follow the Warmaster's commands as if they were the Emperor's. Not all the other Primarchs seemed to be entirely comfortable, not only with this decision, but also with the Emperor's choice to leave them and return to Terra.
Yeah, I can see why.
Considering their strength of character, this seems somewhat surprising, but if anything it shows that their bond they shared with the Emperor was perhaps not rock solid, and some of them felt bewildered he should choose to leave them on the fringes of the galaxy when overall victory seems so near and so secure.
Yeah, because again, they haven't seen their father in like a long time because they got separated. You would think that way he would stay with them. You know, maybe bond a little bit more. Oh, you probably don't care about bonding like that. But if I was in their shoes, some of them, I would feel some type of way too. Like, really? You gonna leave us now after what we just been through? Like, we're so close to winning. Like, what are you doing? Why would you leave now?
Horus, whilst being a supreme master of military matters, was also less well known for being exceptionally tactful and charismatic. He would take time to speak to each of his brother Primarchs in turn. Understanding them as he did, he would employ his various skills of perception and charisma to appeal to their individual natures and reassure them that although the Emperor had granted him this glorious honour, it was the Brotherhood together who would achieve the ultimate victory.
Brotherhood.
This helped quell some of the disquiet, but it was not only the Primarchs who felt bemused that the Emperor had abandoned them, and in time, this in combination with other unfortunate events would lead to the darkest of catastrophes. In fact, there have been many examples throughout human history where withholding information would lead to disaster.
Yep.
And this period for humanity would be no exception.
Yeah.
The Emperor's decision to not make his Space Marines aware of the dark forces of chaos for their own benefit, in fact, even to this day...
Wait, he didn't tell them about the chaos? He didn't tell about chaos? I mean, I thought you would. Like, I thought that would be important to know. Like, hey, watch out for chaos. You know, chaos exists.
Marines aware of the dark forces of chaos for their own benefit. In fact, even to this day,
it's all part of his
the vast majority of the Imperial citizenship lives blissfully unaware of the darkness that lies in the Imperium.
It's master plan.
The precise reasons for this are not crystal clear. Perhaps he felt that humans were too easily persuaded or tempted by the promises of quick, easy power. But whatever the reason, the consequences for the Primarchs and Space Marines to not be able to see this danger, as well as the Imperium, would be disastrous. The Astartes legions had encountered vague clues and shrouded warnings on some lost human worlds they encountered, whispers in the wind, apparent possession of marines. Horus and his Lunar Wolves discovered direct evidence of some dark force when they encountered a lost but highly advanced human colony known as the Interrex in the later stages of the Expeditionary Crusade. As the fleet travelled to the Interrex homeworld, they engaged in extended peaceful negotiations. Again, this was an example of the Space Marines and notably Horus not giving preference to immediate combat, but in choosing a peaceful option if this was viable to them. It was always preferable.
Right.
Their mission of Imperial Truth was without question. It was the only resolution that would ever be acceptable to the fleet though. Now during this encounter, Garviel Loken, who was the Lunar Wolves' 10th captain and a member of the Mournival was a close and under Imperial rule illegal clique of brothers, but one which Horus had allowed to exist so as to help advise him on matters of importance.
So he had like a secret group of people to help him, or like a couple of people to help him. Like, hey, should I go with this decision? Should I do that? I don't know. I need some guidance because I'm not the Emperor. I might need like a second opinion on this.
Loken was among the War Master's party when they attended a reception with these Interrex during negotiations. He was drawn into a casual conversation with one of the Interrex guard who admitted that...
what's his name again? Sorry for pausing so much. I know it's a long video, but I gotta make sure.
Loken was among the War Master's party when they attended a reception with these Interrex during negotiations. He was drawn into a casual conversation with one of the Interrex guard who admitted that the Interrex had learned to tread carefully with any newcomers to their people because they feared the taint of chaos with a K on these newcomers.
With a K, okay.
It becomes apparent that the Interrex colony had made dealings with the Xenos race, the Eldar, during the Age of Strife, and the Interrex explain how it is their understanding from what they could discern from the Eldar that chaos is a threat like no other, that it would not appear brutal or blunt at first, but subtly. They feared chaos deceptively approaching their space, posing as a friend, seeking to bleed its way into their confidences and then destroy them mercilessly from the inside out.
Yeah.
Loken was shaken at these unknown revelations, and the War Master Horus would later assure him that there is no fundamental evil in the galaxy, and that is the end of the matter.
Why would you assume that? You don't know anything about the galaxy. Why would you assume any of that? Oh, Horus, no. Why would you assume that? There's so much stuff we don't know. There's so much stuff you don't know. We know. So much stuff you don't know about the galaxy. You don't know about the technology that you've been missing because of the Dark Age incident.
But the seeds of suspicion are planted. Loken cannot shake this feeling that something somewhere
The whole new god out there.
Before we'd have any opportunity to follow up and explore these doubts, a break-in occurs in one of the Intrex's most sacred museums, and a highly advanced blade known as an anatheme is stolen. At this time, despite Horus's pleas for restraint, negotiations would now collapse, and the Lunar Wolves and the advanced Intrex would fall into all-out conflict. The Space Marines of Horus are ultimately victorious over the Intrex, but it's a victory Horus takes no pleasure in, as it's born out of misunderstanding and was a tragic, unnecessary conflict.
Yeah, you took us. It's because they thought the intersects. What are they called? My God, sorry, words. It's been a long day. It's been a long recording session.
Despite Horus's pleas for restraint, negotiations would now collapse, and the Lunar Wolves and the advanced Intrex would fall.
Intrex, okay. Did the Intrex think that the Lunar Wolves took the sword? Let me just double check again.
Somewhere, break-in occurs. Wrong. Before we'd have any opportunity to follow up and explore these doubts, a break-in occurs in one of the Intrex's most sacred museums, and a highly advanced blade known as an anatheme is stolen. At this time, despite Horus's pleas for restraint, negotiations
they thought Lunar Wolves took it, which I don't know why they would think that, but
would now collapse, and the Lunar Wolves and the advanced Intrex would fall into
it's probably a chaos
conflict.
Something
The
dealing with
Space Marines
chaos.
of Horus are ultimately victorious over the Intrex.
Probably corrupted someone's mind to take the sword to make it look like
no pleasure in,
Horus
as it's
took it.
born out of misunderstanding and was a tragic, unnecessary conflict. These events, though, would become just a singular fragment in a deteriorating pattern of troubles that would haunt and gesticulate within Horus, as well as his unease then irradiating out into his brother Primarchs, the Mournival, his and other legions. Unbeknownst to Horus, a sequence of events had been now initiated, and their cascade could not be prevented. So why are these events so important? Well, for one, it gives more insight into the fact that at the time, it seems barely any Space Marines at any level of rank had any knowledge of chaos. And if they
I thought this entire time they knew about chaos, but no, they didn't know anything until I guess after this whole incident happened that he's about to talk about. Okay, I am glad I watched this. I always thought they knew about chaos.
It was only the vaguest of suspicions, the kind that could easily be brushed off by speaking to, say, some iterators.
Right.
They had no idea about the true nature or capabilities of the malevolent force known as Chaos.
Bro, Emperor, what are you doing?
By comparison, the Emperor understood all too well the dark forces that had very recently annihilated the Eldar and consumed so many human colonies throughout the Age of Strife. It seems strange that he would choose not to gift his Astartes, and more importantly his Primarchs, with this information so that they could best protect against its darkness.
Sorry, boss. I know why you wouldn't tell everybody, but not like the Primarchs or the Astartes, like the most trusted people, but like the power. You don't tell them so they can prevent this from happening, because again, you left them alone to finish the Great Colonization thing, colonies, whatever. But you just told them nothing. So now, oh no.
But perhaps he feared that knowledge of the warp entities would do more harm than good, instead choosing ignorance as the best policy.
His master plan, guys, his master plan.
A combination of time, doubt, rejection, jealousy, and greed brewing in corners of the Astartes legions would prove this to be an unwise decision.
Show that chapter. To be continued. No, you ended on the nice critical part I wanted to hear. No, I wanted to hear about this next part. The Horus Heresy, I think, was next. No, I wanted to hear it. This one's very detailed. This video I feel is way more detailed than the video I watched in the past about that incident. I'm learning new things I didn't know about. Again, I didn't know the Space Marines, the Astartes didn't know about the chaos, like just chaos in general. Only the Emperor knew about it. I thought he told everybody. He did not. I didn't know about like his origin story of the Emperor. Like it's different types of origin stories, and not like a definitive like, yeah, this is what happened. No, this was definitely a good watch, a good like relearning. I still gotta relearn some more things in part 2 because I know about the Horus Heresy, but I don't know about all the details about it, which I believe he's gonna go into next video. It's just there's so much stuff I want to learn about Warhammer that I wish I would have kept making videos on. Because I really don't know why I stopped. There's no reason to stop, but yeah, I want to learn about the orcs, the Eldars, the some like side stuff that's going on. Because I used to watch like some of these like little side stories that West Hammer used to make. There's random stuff going on. There's some other races that don't start with a T, I think. There's so much more I don't know about. The Chaos Gods too, especially Khorne, the god of like basically not madness, but like blood for the blood god. There we go. That guy, I don't know about him. Zeech, I think, the second one, like the not magic, like smart god, whatever. Chaos guy, I want to know about him. Some other funny stories, like some other factions in like the orcs and the Eldar. I want to learn a lot about Warhammer. And it starts now. It starts today. Thank you, Space Marine 2, for coming out, because you relit a fire in my Warhammer learning lore knowledge. That didn't make no sense, but we'll take it. But we're going to stop it for today. This is already a very long video. We are at almost 2 hours. I'm probably going to cut this down a little bit, but yeah, this was fun. Part 2 is coming soon. I hope. Don't quote me on that. I'm very bad on like keeping up. I'm very bad on, sticking to a time. But it's going to be coming. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I need to hear about the Horus Heresy event. But hope you enjoyed my reaction. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hey, I enjoyed this video heavily. I was pausing, trying to learn some stuff, going back and forth. Hopefully you guys want to know about me like going back and forth and pausing a lot, because there's a lot in this video. I want to make sure I understood. But yeah, hope you enjoyed my reaction, and thank you for watching. My cup of tea is out of here. Deuces, everybody. Dang. Dang, Emperor. I did not know you did not tell them about the chaos. I feel like this could have been prevented then. This thing that's about to happen in the next video. I feel like it could have been prevented if you would have told them about chaos. That's crazy to me. That's crazy.